Chapter 3. The Equation of One Punch. The first parademon never knew what hit it. From its perspective, it dove on the anomaly with 1,000 of its brothers, weapons charged, wings beating, howling Darkseid's name in binary and blood. Then its world became a red glove, and a very brief sensation of being everywhere at once. From the outside, it looked like this. Saitama jumped. He rose into the swarm like a launched bullet, cape flaring. The front rank of parademons folded inward around him, closing like a mouth. He started punching. There was no pattern to it, not at first. No martial arts flourish, no cosmic geometry. Just straight, cheap gym punches, thrown by a man who had done the same thing so often, it was muscle memory more than conscious thought. But each punch erased something. Parademons popped like soap bubbles. Armor, flesh, wings, weapons, all turned to dust or fine shrapnel that glittered briefly in the furnace light before evaporating in the heat. The swarm buckled. Saitama moved. He did not teleport. He just refused to respect the usual relationship between speed and air. The sky tore behind him, sonic booms stitched into a rough rhythm. He wove through the horde, weaving a three-dimensional path that looped, dipped, and spiraled, punches landing in little blunt tap-tap-taps that carried the force of artillery. From the ground, it looked like a yellow blur was drawing circles through the sky, and parademons were spontaneously ceasing to exist anywhere that blur passed. Lantern, Batman said tonelessly, watching as a parademon formation collapsed in itself. Shield the slaves. On it, Green Lantern said. A dome of green light snapped into place over the pit, its curves shimmering as fragments of armor and stray energy blasts spattered against it. The freed slaves flinched anyway, conditioned reflexes tight in their muscles. Inside the dome, the scarred woman stared upward with her mouth open. "He fights the sky," she whispered. The bald scientist beside her shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "He is rewriting it." Darkseid did not look up. He ignored the chaos in the air as parademons died by the dozens. He had armies enough to drown 10,000 worlds. The loss of a few thousand winged soldiers meant nothing. His focus stayed on the heroes in front of him. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Lantern, Cyborg, the League, Kryptonian, Darkseid said. The Princess, the Detective, the Soldier of Light, the Machine. All of you have stood in my way before. All have fallen. Superman stepped forward, cape stirring in the hot wind. "So far, you're 0 for however many times we've fought," he said. "But if it makes you feel better to rewrite the scorecard, go ahead." Darkseid's eyes narrowed. "You joke," he said. "Because you still believe. That is your greatest weakness, Superman. Your belief in people, in hope, in a better world. On Apokolips, that belief is the first thing to die." He lifted his hands. The ground buckled. Massive stone spires erupted from the floor of the pit like jagged teeth, separating the League, forcing them to leap aside. Rivers of molten metal shifted course, forming glowing trenches that cut off avenues of movement. The entire slave pit reconfigured itself under Darkseid's will, turning into a killing ground. He stepped down onto a new central dais, raised up by the planet itself. "Come then," he said. "Let us break you properly." Wonder Woman was the first to charge. She sprang over a molten trench, braces raised, shield forward. Her sword gleamed with divine light, cutting a bright line through the smoke. Darkseid met her head-on. Her blade rang off his forearm, with a sound like a bell being hit inside a rock slide. Sparks flew. The impact drove her back a step, boots gouging furrows and stone, but she came right back in, teeth bared, shield slamming toward his chest. He caught it with one hand. The shield shook under his grip. "With all the strength of your gods," Darkseid said, "you still choose bondage to ideals you did not choose." "Better those," Diana said between clenched teeth, "than yours." Her foot snapped up, catching him in the side of the knee. A normal being's joint would have shattered. Darkseid's leg merely shifted, the smallest giving of an ancient stone pillar. But he did move. Superman hit him an instant later. The Kryptonian came in as a blur of red and blue, shoulder lowered, fist cocked. He smashed into Darkseid's chest, with enough power to drive a lesser god through the core of a small moon. Darkseid slid backward a meter. He did not fall. He let go of Diana's shield and caught Superman's next punch. The impact pushed his heels into the rock, cracking it in a spiderweb pattern. "You will not move me," Darkseid said. Superman gritted his teeth. "Already did," he said. "Twice." Behind Darkseid, a glowing green construct of a massive chain whipped around his torso, as Lantern grunted with effort, ring blazing. The links tightened, mountains' worth of force encoded in their curve. Cyborg leapt to a vantage point atop a jutting spire, his sonic cannon whirring up. "Feeding you everything I got," he called. Boom tube frequency disruptors, white noise, hacking attempts on his armor tech. Spoiler, he's mostly rock and malice. Batman moved. He did not leap into the fray. He did not throw himself at Darkseid's chest with fists or batarangs. Instead, he used the reshaped terrain, darting from spire to spire, placing small, unassuming devices on the ground and walls. He had already realized a thing no one else wanted to admit. They were not going to permanently beat Darkseid here. Not on Apokolips. Not in his throne room, with his furnaces, his fields of slave souls, his connection to the very bedrock of this hateful world. But they could do something else. They could break his grip. "Cyborg," Batman said, over the private channel. "I'm feeding you coordinates. Those spots are structural nexus points for Apokolips's energy lattice. The devices will sync with your systems. When I give the word, overload them." "Copy that," Cyborg said. "But just in case I didn't make it clear, we're talking about destabilizing a planet-sized hell factory." "Exactly," Batman said. "You're weirdly calm about that, man." "I'm hoping," Batman said dryly, "that the bald man in the pajamas can punch us through the fallout." In the sky, the battle was starting to look like overkill. Parademons were not designed for this. They were built to harry armies, to swarm over cities, to overwhelm gods by sheer volume. Their weapons were tuned to burn flesh, carve through steel, and harass even beings like Superman. They were not tuned for Saitama. A cluster of them dived together, trying to approach from all sides. Saitama ducked lazily, their energy blasts peeling overhead, then came up into them with a rising uppercut that erased 6 in one go. "Man," he said, as pieces fell around him, "you guys really need a new game plan." He pivoted mid-air, boxing footwork in open sky. To him, this was the Mosquito episode all over again, but with audio bugs and worse smell. The main difference was that he had to keep one eye on the green dome below, so he didn't accidentally punch through it. A parademon flapped directly into his path, shrieking, plasma rifle raised. Saitama caught the barrel between 2 fingers. The energy blast sputtered uselessly against his grip. "Hey," Saitama said, "careful where you point that." He flicked the gun away. The recoil sent the parademon spinning. Before it could recover, he tapped it on the forehead with the back of his knuckle. It vanished. A shadow loomed from underneath. Something big and brutal hurtled up toward him, trailing chains. Palibak, Darkseid's son, roared as he swarmed his fearsome weapon. The Beta Club crackled with raw energy, a compact warhammer of gravitational and concussive force. "You," Kalibak bellowed, "wretched little man, you dare touch my father! You dare defy Darkseid?" Saitama's vision briefly filled with angry tusks and bad dental work. "Ha," he said. "You're, strong, I guess." Kalibak brought the club down in a 2-handed smash that would have cratered a continent. Saitama raised one hand and caught it. The impact rippled out in a visible wave, pushing parademons away like leaves in a gust. The club stopped dead in his palm. Kalibak's eyes bulged. "Whoa!" he managed. Saitama squeezed. The Beta Club's casing dented inward with a sharp, metallic groan. Sparks burst from its seams. The internal generators whined in protest. "Stop!" Kalibak wheezed. You cannot." Something slammed into Saitama from the side. He let go of the club out of surprise more than necessity, turning his head as a spear of gleaming alien metal scraped across his back. He had to admit that one he actually felt. He followed the spear back to its owner. A woman hovered there, backlit by fires, wearing armor that looked both ceremonial and entirely practical. Her hair was cropped, short, depressed. Her eyes burned with battle joy. A scar wired itself across her cheek. On him, 3 more shapes appeared around Saitama, all in motion, no hesitation. Lashina's whips cracked, blazing with electric agony. Mad Harriet screeched, claws out, leaping in a frenzy. Stomper descended like a falling building, boots burning with impact force. Saitama raised his eyebrows. "Oh," he said. "New mini-bosses." He blurred. Lashina's whips cut the air where he had just been. Mad Harriet's claws ripped through a parademon instead, who screamed in surprise, and then not at all. Stomper's boots slammed together, blowing out a shockwave that sent 3 of her own soldiers pinwheeling. Calibac tried to bring the Beta Club around again, warring. Saitama reappeared behind him. "Hey," he said. "You dropped something." He tapped the back of Calibac's head. Calibac went face first into a passing warship. The ship lost. He plowed through its hull, tore out the far side, and tumbled downward in a shower of metal and fire, drawing a long gouge across the landscape when he hit. Saitama winced. Ouch. That had to hurt. Something looped around his neck. Lashina's whip. It tightened, crackling. The energy field was tuned to bite into new god flesh, to suppress divine powers. On Saitama, it felt like a slightly warm scarf. "That usually does more," Lashina muttered, yanking harder. Saitama reached up and pulled the whip off like a tangled headphone cable. "Do you guys have a union?" he asked. "Because you're seriously under-equipped for this job." Mad Harriet shrieked and went for his eyes. He sidestepped. She flew past, momentum carrying her head first into Stomper's stomach. Stomper oofed and doubled over. Saitama flicked his wrist. The whip snapped back, curling around both of them. Before they could react, he tied a quick knot. The 2 furies went tumbling through the air, shrieking in indignation, attached to each other in an involuntary duet. Barda watched them spin away, eyes narrowed. She had hung back a few meters, spear held low, watching how he moved. It had been a long time since she had seen someone toy with the furies like that. "Who are you?" she demanded. Saitama floated there, cape flapping, looking faintly apologetic. "Saitama," he said. "Hero for fun. Sorry if I messed up your team formation." "You fight Darkseid," Barda said. "You free his pits. You throw his son into his own warship. And you claim it is for fun." Saitama scratched his cheek. "I mean," he said, "it was kind of that or let everyone die." Barda's grip tightened on her spear. "You will not win," she said. It sounded more like a warning than a threat. "Even if you break his armies, even if you tear down his fortress, Darkseid is not a man to be defeated. He is Darkseid." Saitama looked past her, down toward the pit where Superman and Wonder Woman were trading blows with the stone tyrant. Lanterns' constructs flashing, cyborgs' cannons hammering. Batman's small devices blinking faintly against the rock. He looked at the slaves huddled under the green dome, watching with scared, hungry eyes. He thought of his own world, with its stupid weekly monsters, and grocery sales, and late rent, and the feeling of waking up, knowing exactly how every fight would end. "I don't know about all that cosmic metaphor stuff," he said. "I just know if a guy is beating on people who can't fight back, you punch him in the face." He eyed Barda's armor. "You look like you know that too," he added. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Doubt. She shoved it down, raising her spear. Fight me," she said. "If you must." Saitama sighed. "Can we maybe not?" he said. "I'm trying to get back to the main boss." Darkseid had just driven his fist into Superman's gut, hard enough to make the Kryptonian cough blood. Wonder Woman's lasso was wrapped around Darkseid's arm, glowing with truth, but he was dragging her forward by it, ignoring everything it whispered about his nature. Fear spiked in the pit. Saitama felt it. His eyes narrowed. "Okay, tell you what," he told Barda. "You can either keep throwing yourself into the meat grinder for the big rot bully, or you can maybe stand somewhere not in the way while I fix this. Up to you." He blurred. Barda turned to track him, and realized that for a moment, he had simply not been there. She looked down and saw a yellow streak arrowing toward the days. Her fingers clenched around her spear. Granny Goodness's voice crackled in her earpiece. barking orders from some command center deeper in the fortress. "Bada, darling, bring me that little bald thing's head." Bada did not move. She watched. On the dais, the League was losing ground. Darkseid fought like a living equation, whose answer was always dominance. Every motion was efficient, every blow designed to both hurt and humiliate. He backhanded Superman aside, sending him skidding across stone into one of Batman's blinking devices. The Dark Knight threw himself aside at the last second to avoid being pulverized by several hundred pounds of Kryptonian. "On," Superman grunted, shaking off the hit. Wonder Woman slid under Darkseid's next punch, her sword biting into his side. A shallow gash opened, seeping weird, dark light instead of blood. Darkseid turned his head toward her. His hand closed around the blade. Diana braced, pulling back. For a moment, godly muscles and divine will strained against the grip of a being who had held universes in his hands. The sword snapped. He slapped her away with the broken length, sending her crashing through a stone spire. Green Lantern's chain construct tightened again, more links forming. "Stay down already," he muttered, pouring willpower into the ring. Darkseid flexed. The chain shattered into green fragments. The recoil sent Lantern tumbling. Cyborg's cannon fired, a focused beam that combined sonic disruption, white noise, and concentrated energy. It hit Darkseid full in the face, briefly obscuring him in a blaze. When the light cleared, Darkseid's head turned slowly toward the source. "Annoying," he said. He raised his hand. A pencil-thin Omega beam lanced out, too fast to track, zigzagging around obstacles, curving under Lantern's hastily raised shield. Cyborg jerked. For a terrifying instant, the beam burrowed into his chest, searching for something to unmake. Circuits flared and screamed. His human eye went wide. Then the patched-together boom tube hardware inside him, the piece that made him more than just a man with a cannon, screamed, "Let's find out." A word power inflected. Reality stuttered. The Omega beam hiccuped, then split, scattering into harmless red sparks. Cyborg staggered, dropping to one knee. "Victor!" Superman shouted. I'm good," Cyborg panted. "We had a disagreement about what counts as a system file." Batman was there a second later, dragging him behind a half-collapsed wall for cover. "That won't work twice," he said. "You're overloading." "Yeah," Cyborg grunted, clutching his chest. "Not planning on being a recurring menu option for Murder Eyes." Batman took a breath. "Saitama!" he shouted. The bold hero was already halfway down. He hit the daze in a crouch, a small crater blooming under his boots. Dust puffed outward, dusting Darkseid's boots. "Hey," Saitama said. "Stop beating up my teammates." He blinked. "Whoa," he added. "I've teammates." Weird. Superman hauled himself up, wiping blood from his mouth. "I like to think of us as friends," he said. Saitama blinked again. "What? Really? Can we do the feelings talk after we're not on fire?" Lantern called from above, dodging incoming blasts. Darkseid regarded Saitama. "You swat at my armies," he said. "You break my chains. You meddle in my pits and encourage my slaves to believe in escape. You resist the Omega, twist the Sanction, ignore the anti-life's whisper." He stepped closer. "So, now we will test another hypothesis," he said. "What happens when the unstoppable force meets a concept?" Batman's head sapped up. "Everyone," he said sharply over the lead channel, "fall back from the dais, now." Superman opened his mouth to ask why. He saw it first in Darkseid's eyes. The red glow changed. It went from light to something else. A symbol flickered there. Not letters, not numbers, but an idea, angular and harsh. The anti-life equation, encoded in a shape that were more commandment than math. The air around Darkseid thickened. The slaves closest to the dais clutched their heads, gasping. Even through Lantern's shield, they felt it. A sudden, crushing certainty that they were nothing, that their choices had never mattered, that they were and always had been tools. Wonder Woman stumbled, her hand going to her temple. "Fight it," she snarled at herself. "Fight." Batman didn't feel it in quite the same way. His mind was a fortress built out of obsession and contingency. But even he felt a pressure at the edges of his thoughts. A voice offering an easier path. Stop struggling. Everything is predetermined. You are a bat flying in a cage, not a cave. He gritted his teeth. No, he whispered. Superman felt it like an attack on the exact part of him that had once believed a man in a cape could change the world. It tried to pry that hope out, to show him every failure, every life he hadn't saved. A hand closed on his shoulder, grounding him. Saitama. Hey, Saitama said quietly. You okay? Superman blinked. The voice in his head faltered. There was something about Saitama's presence. It wasn't a shield of will like Lantern's constructs. It wasn't divine protection. It was something much simpler and much stranger. Disinterest. Where anti-life tried to dig its hooks in, Saitama's mind was flat. Not empty, not stupid, but unyielding in its own weird way. He had spent so long wrestling with existential questions that this new, external one felt like spam mail. He swatted it down. Sorry, he told the creeping concept, already unsubscribed. Darkseid's gaze focused fully on him now. Omega and anti-life braided together. You cannot be bored by the fundamental truth, Darkseid said. There is no freedom. There is only my will. I make the rules. Even you will bend. Saitama looked unimpressed. Your truth sucks, he said. Also, your planet design is bad. Too much fire. He stepped in. Darkseid fired. This was not a beam in the usual sense. It was a directed burst of encoded command. You are nothing. Obey. It hit Saitama full in the face. There was no flash this time. No roaring explosion. The world just dimmed, as if all the color had been sucked out. The slaves sagged. Even the League felt a lurch in their bones. The equation poured into Saitama's head. It found boredom, frustration, isolation. A long stretch of days where nothing mattered because nothing could stand against him. It smiled, in its own way. You see, it whispered. You already know. Effort is pointless. Struggle is meaningless. No matter how strong you are, there is no purpose. You are a slave to your own power. Let go. Fall. Saitama thought about it. He thought about endless days with no real fight. About heroes' associations full of politics and paperwork. About Genos blowing up his own body again and again, trying to catch up. About King's nervous face as everyone assumed he was the strongest. He thought about sitting alone in his apartment, staring at the ceiling. You know, he said slowly, you're not totally wrong. The anti-life equation surged. Darkseid's smile widened. Saitama, Superman said sharply. But, Saitama went on, you're missing the best part. He looked up. He met Darkseid's eyes through the storm of concept. Just because life doesn't have some big cosmic meaning, he said, doesn't mean you get to make it worse for everyone. The words were simple. The effect was not. The equation stuttered. It had been designed to exploit despair, not shrugging acceptance. It didn't know what to do with someone who agreed that existence was absurd, and still chose to do the right thing, because, well, what else was he going to do that day? Saitama smiled a little, the faintest curve at the corner of his mouth. I'm a hero, he said. For fun, not for destiny or equations or whatever, just because I decided to be. He took another step forward. The pressure of anti-life cracked around him like glass underfoot. Batman exhaled slowly, the voice in his head receding. Superman felt his hope burn a little brighter again. Wonder Woman straightened, jaw set. Lantern's ring steadied. Darkseid's eyes flared angrily. Enough, he said. He drew his fist back. This time, Saitama did too. For the first time since he had arrived, he dropped his shoulders just a little, grounding his stance. His fist came up, not quite the way it did for a serious punch, but no longer in the lazy, half-hearted cadence of a man swatting insects. The air trembled. League, Batman said quickly. Fall back. Now. They moved. Superman grabbed Wonder Woman by the arm, hauling her out of the blast zone. Lantern yanked Cyborg and Batman backward with a hard light hook. The slaves nearest the dais were already pressed against the edges of the shield, trying to get further away. Even Darkseid's own parademons veered aside instinctively. For a split second, the two fists filled everyone's world. Saitama's, wrapped in cheap red glove. Darkseid's, encased in stone flesh older than some suns. They met. Reality coughed. The sound was not so much a boom as a sudden, catastrophic absence of sound. The rock under their feet liquefied and then re-solidified in weird, glassy patterns. The air within a radius of 1/2 kilometer was squeezed flat and then exploded outward in a ring. A column of force speared straight up from the dais, punching through the ceiling of the slave pit, through the fortress above, through several levels of Apokolips industrial strata. On the surface, massive towers toppled as the column erupted into the open sky, ripping through smog and smoke and scraping the edge of space. From orbit, Apokolips shuddered. In the watchtower, the view screen went white, then flooded with warning symbols. Flash said, staring. Did someone just set off a planet busser? Metron, watching from a safe remove, in the bleed between realities, leaned back in his chair. Fascinating, he murmured. Down below, at the point of impact, both combatants slid backward. Saitama's boots ground twin trenches into the stone. Darkseid's heels carved similar grooves. They both stopped, still on the dais, a few meters apart. The rock between them was gone. For the first time, Darkseid was breathing a little harder. A faint crack ran up his arm from knuckle to elbow, glowing with inner light. It healed even as the glow pulsed, but it was there. Saitama shook out his hand. Ow, he said, quietly. There was a faint pinkness across his knuckles. He stared at it. He flexed his fingers. Then he looked up, eyes wide, in genuine surprise and something perilously close to joy. You, he said to Darkseid, voice soft. You actually made my hand hurt. Darkseid's lip curled. You are powerful, he said, more than any mortal I have encountered. Perhaps more than most gods. But you are not beyond me. He spread his arms. Look around you, he said. Apokolips groaned. The impact from their collision had not been gentle. Entire sections of the fortress were listing. Fissures had opened in the ground, magma gushing up in new fountains. The sky was a turmoil of smoke and panicked warcraft. In the pits, slaves huddled under Lantern's shield as debris rained down. You cannot fight me without breaking the world around us, Darkseid said. This is my realm. Every blow you land only feeds my narrative. You cannot end me without ending them. He gestured at the pit. Saitama's gaze followed. He saw the fear, the hope, the exhaustion. He remembered the supermarket sale sign he might never see again. He remembered being human enough to care about 300 yen. He remembered, more clearly, a simple thought, a hero. For fun, fine, he said. He looked over his shoulder at Superman, at Wonder Woman, at the others. You guys handle the planet, he said. I'll handle the rock jerk. Batman blinked. Define handle the planet, he called back. Dunno, Saitama said. Just make sure it doesn't blow up while I'm punching him. Or something. Lantern made a strangled sound. Sure, he muttered. Just stabilize the hell world. No problem. Cyborg groaned as his systems rebooted in the background. Actually, he said, I might be able to help with that. Batman threw him a quick look. Cyborg continued, mind racing. Apokolips is basically one giant machine, right? Power grids, slave soul lattices, furnace feedback loops. If we overload the network in just the right way, at just the right points, we might be able to shut down portions of it without popping the whole thing like a balloon. Like forcing a system restart, Batman said slowly, on a cosmic scale. Exactly, Cyborg said. And guess who just got a very rude peek inside its code when Darkseid tried to Omega beam my heart? Batman's lips twitched. Lantern, he said, you're going to be very tired by the end of this. Story of my life, Lantern muttered, already pouring energy into scaffolding constructs to brace wobbling towers. Wonder Woman planted her feet and raised her shield. I will hold the line, she said. Keep the people safe. Superman looked at Saitama. Do you need help? He asked. Saitama shook his head. Nah, he said. But, thanks. Superman nodded once. Give him one for us, he said. Saitama turned back to Darkseid. The god of tyranny stood amidst the chaos, perfectly poised, as if the upheaval around him were a stage effect he had ordered in advance. Alone again, Darkseid said, as you were in your world, as you are meant to be. Saitama rolled his shoulders. Maybe, he said, but it doesn't feel like it this time. He dropped into a stance. Not full power, not yet, but closer. In his chest, that tiny flicker of excitement grew. For the first time in years, he was not entirely sure how strong he needed to be. All right, Saitama said. Serious Series, Part 2. He shot forward. Darkseid met him. Their collision turned the slave pit into an earthquake. Rivers of magma bucked. Towers fell. The green shield over the slaves wavered, then held as Lantern grunted and poured everything he had into it. In the sky, Barda watched the shockwaves ripple outward, watched parademons flee in all directions, watched the fortress of her childhood crack and shudder. She thought about Granny Goodness's promises, about Darkseid's teachings, about the countless children broken and remade into weapons. She thought about a bald man in a cheap suit telling her she could, theoretically, choose to not be terrible today. Furies, she said quietly into her comm. Stand down. Granny's outraged shriek came through the line. Barda! You will obey! Barda crushed the communicator in her fist. Below, in the pits, the scarred woman raised her eyes. She saw gods fighting above her. She saw. She also saw something else. The chains were broken. The overseers were dead or gone. Her feet were not bound. She reached down and picked up a discarded parademon rifle. It was heavy, but she could lift it. The bald scientist next to her looked at the weapon, then at her. Where will we go? He asked hoarsely. Up, she said. She fired at the nearest intact overseer tower. On Apokolips, in the heart of despair, the first slave revolt in a very long time began with one uncertain shot. Metron watched it all, data streaming into his chair. Darkseid versus a singular force from another universe, he mused. Anti-life versus apathy. Tyranny versus a bored hero. Slaves remembering they can stand. His fingers tapped on the arm of his chair. This, he said quietly, is why I watch. On the dais, Saitama and Darkseid traded blows that would have written legends on any other world. Saitama's world had never been the same since he realized he could end any fight with one punch. This universe's world might never be the same after learning that someone like him existed. And Apokolips, the constant, the engine of misery at the edge of DC reality, trembled on the brink of something it had not experienced in a very long time. Change.